Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to The Mouse Says The Butler Didn't Do It, a mystery series written by myself, Nico Scher, under the pen name of Cheryl Ann Butler. When last we met, we were reading the story of Dima and Ani, An Escape to a New Hope. They were in Germany and preparing to get ready to leave for the airport to come to the U.S. As it stands right now, Annie has a position as a bridal designer in New Hope at the Bridal Center. And Dima will be looking for a position. But right now, Dima is having issues after being wounded by his former commanding officer. He is dealing with pain, and it is a rainy day in Germany. And Annie has decided she is going to go help. However, sitting in a Interpol cage is a Russian operative from SVR in Kita, who is hunting, and he's trying to figure out why the Zev does not belong to the people he is hunting. It fits the description, but yet there are two young people and a dog that have it. Also in this occurring, there's another operative that has arrived. But thanks to Helga, there may be some interest that occurs in this next story. So, as it is, I thank you for joining us and giving us your time today. Of course, you're probably going to see a cat or two behind me as they climb their shelves, or you will hear the mouse and the puppies growling back and forth as they play. After all, it is The Mouse Says. Thank you, and we continue. Chapter 24. Anastasia left the elevator. She came through the lobby to leave the hotel and waved to Helga. Outside, she flagged a taxi and had the driver take her to the airport's Terminal 1. This time, she went to each of the 10 currency exchange and then even through the kiosks, as they would still cost her more to exchange currency. She had done so. With each of the kiosks, she had changed the limit of the day that was allotted into U.S. dollars. Tomorrow, she would do this again, but right now she needed the pharmacy. Once inside, she purchased the strongest over-the-counter pain relief she could find. Then her heart sank as she focused herself to look for a wheelchair, one that could go on the airplane. She purchased the best foldable portable travel chair that they had, and a cane with a wolf's head that could be stowed in the plane's compartment with Dima. She went to Marche moving pick for sandwiches along with bottles of water. Outside again in the rain, she flagged another taxi and returned to the hotel. As she entered, Helga called out to her, "Fräulein Billig, is all okay? Do you need the house doctor?" Annie stopped by the front desk. "Yes, all is well." No doctor is needed. Thank you. My husband, Dim, is a veteran of Ukraine conflict. He was wounded in battle on Eastern Front. The rain. It pains his back and legs. Doctors tell him he should use a cane. He wears a back brace, but she shrugged and shook her head. He is mal. Jawohl. Helga agreed with a nod. They are very stubborn. So we ladies, she placed her hand upon her heart, have to put our foot down sometimes, or they can hurt themselves. I fully understand. I have been married to the same man for many years, very happily married, but he does this too. I hope he will feel better before you leave us. Thank you. You have a good night. Annie pushed the chair that held her bags down the hall to the elevator. She entered and ascended to the second floor. On exiting, she made a quick walk to the room. Using the pass card, she walked in to find Dima asleep, Tatiana in her basket, Dennis snoring as he lay on the floor, and Ivana seated in the chair reading one of her Harry Potter extra books. I will let them sleep. You and I have work to do, little sister. Ivana smiled as her sister hung her damp coat to dry. When Dima woke several hours later, the ladies were finished the final repair of the last seam in Annie's full-length down feathered coat and the zipper on Tatiana's snowsuit. Annie announced, "Tomorrow we go to a bank. I found out about from speaking to Helga on the house phone and asked a few questions. There is an international one. It has branch here and one in New York. There is one also near New Hope, 10 minutes away. We need to open 6 accounts. It is legal as we are refugees. You and I each open an account, and we open one for the home, a joint account. We open one for each of the children. We can then deposit up to $25,000 U.S. in each single account and $50,000 in the joint. Then we can have more currency exchanged at bank, and we come back to airport to change the rest. I do tricks when we return to hotel, and we pack. You will ride in the chair. It will make a difference for you." Dima took a sandwich she offered and began to eat. "How much more funds will we need to exchange after bank and exchange at the airport tomorrow?" Annie took a breath and told him, "That will take about a week or so in New York. We will need to find a hotel and then purchase a vehicle," he stated. "I would prefer a van. I will look when we arrive." She looked at the clock on the TV. "I hate to wake him after what he dealt with this morning, but he needs to eat. Leave him sleep. Dennis has had a hard day," Dima stated. She agreed as she smiled down at the sleeping boy on the floor. Annie took a blanket to cover him, then glanced at Ivana, where she now slept in the lounge chair. One more blanket over her, and Annie lay down with Dima. She fell asleep in his powerful arms, where she felt safe and happy. Chapter 25. Dima bolted upright with the crash of thunder as the sound rumbled through the hotel. He'd actually reached for his rifle that was somewhere in the village of Krymanakafo, on the hillside of the area near Komyasavika, left behind in Ukraine. Anastasia waited for him to realize where he was. "It was just a bad thunderstorm. You are all right. You are safe." "The children, where are they?" he demanded. She blinked. "Well, if you can hear, both our shower and theirs is running. Dennis is using ours, and Ivina should be finished in a few moments in theirs. Tatiana has been bathed, nursed, and is now napping." "Dima, what has occurred?" He slid back against the headboard. "The thunder. I was back with the gunfire, the explosions happening." He winced as he pulled his knees to his chest and wrapped his arms around them to lay his forehead down. "The war. You were back in the middle of it." She came to the bed to sit and put her arms around him. "I do not want to ever hold a gun in my hands again. but I fear I may have to at one point in time in the future to protect my family. I fully understand, but we will do what we may need to do. Dima raised his tear-streaked face. What are our plans for today? He asked. We go to the bank and open our accounts, and then do our exchange. We come back to the hotel and pack. The water turned off in the bathroom for Dennis to come out several minutes later. As he scrubbed his hair with a towel, he smiled at Dima and cleared his throat. The storm is bad. Are you all right? Because the noise scares me. I came to Annie from our room. I was going to get a shower there, and then the storm came. Ivana said it would be better if I could support you with all these rumbles. Dima held out his arms. Dennis sat on the bed to wrap himself around the man. Thank you for your support. It is from the war. I work too afraid. It is okay to have this happen. He looked at Annie. I want us, when we are settled in our new homeland, to speak with a counselor. And I, if it is okay with you, all feel we could all use the help from all that has happened to you, your family, and to me with seeing a friend killed, and I almost being murdered by the commanding officer. She looked at him and slowly gave a nod. I fully agree. We will need the help. The crash of thunder had her jump. Dennis shook and held tighter to Dima, almost squeezing the breath from the man's lungs. This may take some time for all of us except Tatiana. She can sleep through anything. She laughed, looking down at their infant daughter, who laid there with her breathing in and out slowly, and then a tiny snore. Dennis's shoulders shook, but he wasn't laughing. Dima looked at Annie. They both looked down at the boy, who started to sob. What is it? What is wrong? Dima raised the boy's chin to look at him. Dennis sat back and wiped his eyes and shook his head. Annie bolted as the pounding on the door began. Annie, it's Ivana. Open the door. She yanked opened it and stepped back. What is it? It's all the lightning. It's right close. There was a tree on fire, too close for my liking. She ran into to the room to huddle in the corner by the side of the bed. Dennis, are you all right? Annie closed the door. They heard the fire sirens and could see the flashing of lights through the window. A fire truck rolled into the lot. There were men from the hotel with hoses and buckets dousing the tree. Annie saw the young man running towards the Zez, parked by the tree, to jump in and accelerate in reverse. Oh dear, she squeaked. Dirk is trying. She winced as she watched the van jump the curb and clip a tree branch, then spin in the dirt and grass to wheel forward. What is it? Dima leaned up. Dirk's just said... Excuse me. Dirk's just saved the Zed from the flames of the burning tree. She watched as he parked the van at a distance and just sat there. Is he all right? Dima asked. Adelheid came running from the front of the hotel. Annie watched her pound on the window. The door slid back for her to pull Dirks from the seat. Under his arm he held something, but Annie couldn't make out what it was. He is okay, Annie announced as she turned to them. Now, Dennis, what is wrong, sweetheart? The boy shook his head and continued to sob as Annie closed the drape of the window. Dennis raised one hand to point at Dima, to point at what Dima thought was Annie's trinket box. "It's Pooba, right?" Annie sighed. "Oh," Ivina wailed and covered her eyes. "He hated the storms and then the gunfire. Oh," she wailed. Dennis nodded his head and wiped more tears. Annie closed her eyes and wiped her own tear-streaked face as they fell. Dennis's voice shook. "Yes." Through sobs, chokes, and with her fists clenched, she explained. "Pooba was his little dog. The day the bastard shot you, he wasn't shooting at Dennis. He was—" Dennis burst into more tears. "The lower movement in the field. I remember seeing it. Yes." Dima pulled the child into his arms. Annie blinked as the tears flowed down. "After he brought you to us, he went back to bring our little Pooba home." She turned to pick up what he had always assumed was her keepsake or trinket box and held it to her chest. "I cremated the little one. I could not do this with Dim. He is resting in our business's backyard. My grandparents. But this little one, he goes with us to New York. But I miss Dim and them so much." She wiped her eyes. "I miss him. He was my little friend. He was only a puppy." Dennis struggled to free himself from Dima's arms as he ran to the bathroom. "The grave you said the Kaddish for was a goodbye to Dim and them also. That of your grandparents, am I right?" Dima said a string of Russian profanities. Chapter 26. Dima threw the covers back to pull on his jeans and his shirt, then stepped into his sneakers to tie them. As he staggered, Annie took his hand. "Dima, I will be back. I need an hour or so. Let me go. Let me do something good for once." He grabbed his jacket and the cane. "Where are you going?" "To try to undo some damage my asshole of a president has done. God forgive me, but I wish him death." Pulling open the door, Dima left the room. It took Dima several moments in the elevator and pacing the common area to calm himself enough to sit down and use the complimentary computer and find the answers he'd sought. Using the hotel site for sale of items, barter, exchange, and items for free, he found the advertisement that had caught his attention, and he had laughed at it when he read the way it was phrased when Annie had placed her ad for the sale of the truck. It read, "My name is Noel Kumpf, Puddinhead. I am ready for an exciting and amazing new way of life. I bring with me into your world all I need: vaccination records, tags, and certificate for given rabies shots and parvo, parasite treatment documents, my own international doggies passport, certification by Dr. William Groover of Hofstra Veterinary Clinic, Berlin, Germany, for good health, my birth certificate and registration with the VDH, recognized by the FCI, DVG, JGHV, and easily I can be registered with the AKC. I bring along with me as luggage my certified air travel carrier. This is so I can ride with you in the plane's passenger compartment. My bowls, dog bed, blanket, toys, harness, leash my stroller, and a pleasant and happy personality with plenty of face licks and tail wags. I am 18 months of age, stud certified. I am a wire-haired dachshund of 12 kilograms who wishes to see the USA. Please contact my representative agent, Dirks and Aldehind Braun. It gave the phone extension to the registration desk. Dima pressed print. He picked up the paper and turned to see Helga and a young woman at the registration desk. Dima took the paper to Helga. Helga looked at it and spoke to the young woman coming from the front doors of the hotel. Ja, she exclaimed excitedly. Then, taking her phone, she made a call. When she finished, she explained. He was bred by my grandfather, who was lifelong member of Dachshund Breeders and of all the German registers for Dachshund. Noel Kampf is last baby to be bred before he passed away. He is wire-haired, is not so desired here. You do not have a price for him, Dima stated. Nein, no price. He needs a family. Dirks and I, we are siblings, twins, and moving from our home here to apartment dorm. They no accept. He needs a family. Please, you take, please. Idle, came a recognized voice from behind them. Dima turned to see the young waiter who had brought the truck. Dirks was pushing what looked like a baby stroller that was loaded with a soft-sided suitcase and an eager-looking fuzzy puppy. On top of the suitcase was an airline-approved pet carrier. Herr Billock, it is you! He came around the stroller to clasp Dima's hands in both his and continued to shake them as tears filled his eyes. Danke, danke, danke. Oh, he is good boy, I promise. He released his hand to open the package on the travel carrier. These must carry with Case and Noel Kampf. They are his paperwork. You must have someone in America pick him up to receive him when you arrive. Is law in U.S. All is in order. His stroller go too. He turned to the dog. You be good boy. Enjoy your new life in U.S. I will miss you very much. Maybe someday Adelheid and I will make it to see you again. We love you. He kissed the pup's head, wiped his eyes, and looked at Helga. I need a moment before I start work. Helga wiped her own tears. Jawohl. Adelheid knelt down. I love you. Be good. She kissed his head and fled to the buffet. Helga took a deep breath. Those two have been trying to find a home in the USA for him since their grandfather passed. They are twins and have both put off their scholarship at a school called Princeton University. One is pre-law, the other pre-med. Until they are sure he would have a home in the country. She wiped a tear. Danke, you have given them that. You have given them such joy. Dima patted the pup's head. I do not know where this Princeton College is, but he wrote down the address of the Crystal Heart Lodge Inn Bed and Breakfast. This is where they will be able to find us for a while as we repair the home we are buying. Have them write to us any time they want to check on him. Now, how would I make arrangements to book him on our flight on my lap? I can do that for you. I need information. You will need your credit card to get boarding ticket for him. They handled the registration and the ticket. Thank you for your help. Dankeschön. Helga smiled. Thank you from an aunt's heart. They are my niece and nephew from my husband's side." He took a deep breath and stepped behind the stroller. "Are you ready to meet your new family? And we will not forget your boy and girl. I promise you that." The dog's tail wagged. Dima walked down the hall to the elevator. They entered, and he pressed the button for the second floor. Dima hummed to the dog as the elevator rose. Chapter 27. When they exited the lift, they slowly walked down the hall. Dima tapped on the door as he forgot to take the pass card. Annie opened the door. She took one look at him and the puppy and closed the door. "What?" Puddinhead, whose name of Nolkoff meant that in German, looked at him and whined. "I do not know," Dima answered the dog's question. Then he heard her speak to Dennis and Ivana. The door opened once more for the children to stand there, and Annie holding the baby with a smile. Nolkoff was scooped up by Dennis, and tears streamed down his face as Ivana started into a dance. He pushed the stroller in. "All is set. We pick up ticket for him today. You will need to contact Mrs. Kugat to see if someone can meet us at the airport to claim him. Someone who is resident of U.S. must do this." Annie laid the baby in the basket and sat down to open her laptop. He closed the door behind him and placed the travel carrier on the bed, then set down the suitcase and folded the stroller. The children placed his bed for the day next to Tatiana's basket where Ivana had laid her when Annie had laid the baby. Ivana filled the water bowl. Noel Comp took a few laps and settled to play with a toy with Dennis. Dima explained about the twins and how he set things up. Annie laid on the bed as she closed her laptop. "We are settled in U.S. "What do you mean?" Dima turned for the bath. "You explain, then I unfortunately need hot shower to relieve the pain and stiffness. This weather will not get better before we are scheduled to leave. I chat with Mrs. Shelley Kugat. Put on the chat. It was Mrs. Kugat's ex-son-in-law, Jess McMichaels. It is still late night or early morning this morning there because of time zones being 6 hours difference. He was there picking up his daughter for school orchestra practice. She plays drums. Anyway, his sister Stevie and her husband, Dr. Rain Thompson, and their children are leaving for the home the doctor and his late wife owned together in Long Island Sound on New York City early on Friday morning. He is veterinarian and they are staying there for the holiday. We stay with them until the Crystal Heart Lodge Inn bed and breakfast on Monday opens after this Thanksgiving, to which we are also invited to celebrate our first American Thanksgiving with them. And Annie set up. I am to look at a used van. It is called a fleet-owned vehicle. Dr. Lane's brother, Cash, owns and runs a limousine service. He has older large Dodge Tradesman 300, has been garage kept and maintained. It was his wife's personal van and is already registered in Pennsylvania. It will be at house as Cash and Hindi will be there to visit. Price, what is cost, may I ask? They want $600 for it. He says it's old, 1977, but the engine is very good. A 440 Magnum and is 4-speed on 4-wheel drive hubs. I not understand all of that, but sounds good to me. Very good. I try to ease pain now. Then we have to deal with banking. He leaned down to kiss her. Dima, Dennis called as he laid with Pudd'nhead. Yes? Thank you for him. Dima smiled. You are welcome. He limped into the bathroom. As he prepared the shower, he closed his eyes for a brief moment to regroup his thoughts, as memories entered his brain. For a fleeting second, he heard his dead, Boris, say, I saw your mother today. She is expecting another baby. You will be a big brother once more, someday soon. I do not know if you will ever meet them. We can only pray you do. Then it was gone. A sibling. I have at least 2 siblings, at least half-siblings. But where? How do I find them? And I have no clue. I have no clue as to if Peter lives or did he die in that cave we attempted to give him shelter in. I know the 2 that helped me. They should not be trusted, not with what I find in that box that is linked to them. I also know not if they live or die after I was shot. He sighed and stepped into the shower. Chapter 28. The hot shower helped, but not enough that Dima felt he could walk as far as he would need to on this storm-filled day. Then, when they were ready, Ivana carried Tatiana in her car seat. Dennis walked Nolkoff on his lead, and Annie opened the wheelchair to have Dima sit and push him through the lobby to hail the taxi at the curb. They traveled the short distance to the bank. The 6 accounts were opened and funds exchanged. More funds, Annie and Dima were told, could be placed into certified cashier's checks. These checks could be mailed to their new residents for them to place the first payment onto the house and to cover their fees directly to the bed and breakfast. Also, along with the payment for the van and several other certified checks for deposit. She would then have the notice of them being received with the receipt sent back to the hotel. That is where they would leave a forwarding address for the bed and breakfast. This would be left for Helga, as they did the same for the twins, to keep in touch with them for Pudd'nhead. Then on to the airport. Dima picked up Noel Comp's ticket. They proceeded with them being able to do their final exchange of funds. Tonight we rest after all is packed, and we do not leave the room. We bring food back with us, Dima asserted. They ordered sandwiches and then hailed a taxi to return to the hotel. Stopping at the register desk, they spoke to Helga. Dima explained about the receipts. He gave the address to the bed and breakfast once more. They entered the children's room to help Annie clean it. After they brought everything into the other room, the rest of the day was filled with packing suitcases, stacking them, and Annie preparing Tatiana's diaper bag. Her carry-on with their ID, visas, passports, and tickets lay in wait for the next morning. Annie checked to make sure that along with these bags, she prepared her laptop for travel. As the day went on, they each rested. The children took Noel Comp for walks, and they watched the television. It was uneventful and very boring. By 12:35 in the morning on November 17th, they were ready. Annie did one last check of the room. She took the trash bags from the containers and placed them in a paper bag she had saved from the day they dealt with Kashkoff at the buffet that Adelheid had given her to carry their food. They left the room with Dima in the wheelchair to be met by one of Dirk's and Adelheid's friends who worked at the hotel. I am Ernst, sir and madam. I was sent up by Fräulein Helga to help with your luggage, as you have much. She has already called for the service taxis." His and Annie's suitcases were placed on the luggage cart, followed by the trunk with the stuffed animals and their winter coats. The Torah scroll case was safely secured. Then, on top of all, Ivana, Dennis, and the baby's suitcases with the case of the IRPs were put in place. Annie carried the diaper bag with her carry-on and laptop bag and pushed Dima in the wheelchair. Ivana and Dennis's Lego box and catalogs with the Harry Potter books in her carry-on bag and carried Tatiana in her car seat. Dennis pushed Kolof's stroller with his soft pack on top. Nokov walked along with by Dennis's side as the boy had his travel case folded down. It was slung over his back and several toys tucked in for the trip and his water and food dishes inside. When they reached the lobby, Helga had everything ready for them to check out. To Annie's surprise, Sergeant Michel Dilettante was coming through the door at a little after 2 a.m. "My word, let me help." He held the door with one hand and motioned for the first of the 2 waiting taxis with the other. "Merci," Annie smiled. The 2 drivers proceeded with the second vehicle to load their cases. Then they helped Dima into the front seat of the first taxi. This was where he held Nokov. In his carrier he'd been placed into settle on his lap. Tatiana's seat was strapped in the back with Annie and Dennis. Ivana sat between Dima and the driver. Annie had just settled the baby into the back seat and gotten her to sleep as Michelle leaned down. "May you have a very pleasant journey and be blessed in your new life. Oh, by the way, my late wife had found a country cottage for me to be able to settle into and write my children's books. I have found an illustrator for them as well. I will retire the day after the hearing, and guess where I retire to?" "Where?" Annie asked with a smile at his good news. "To the U.S. We will be neighbors. I will be able to be there for my niece and nephew, the twins. Farewell to you all." He gave a wave. "Blessings, sir, and thank you," Annie smiled. Michelle gave a nod and stood. As he turned, Michelle squinted to glare at a new visitor. He saluted the family, then walked to the door to place a hand on it. This was done to hold the door for a lady just arriving from the airport. He noted this by apparently her struggles that she had by the suitcase she towed. Then this was also infringed on by the carry-on she held that jammed the doorway and caught to have the seam burst open. "Oh, dear!" Michelle pulled the door back that he had pinned her bag with. Annie watched and raised an eyebrow at these actions. All of this was taking place while he whistled the tune "New York, New York" from the musical On the Town. The Billick family drove away from the curb with farewell waves to him. He returned the waves with a bow to them. Chapter 29. The man held the door to hear the cursing and rushing coming from the woman. She yanked her bags loose to stand there and glared at Michelle. "Hello, madame. How have you been these last few years, Olya?" "Sergeant Dilettante." She thumped her bag to turn for the register desk. And Helga, Helga bit her lip as she watched the antics with her younger brother-in-law and attempted to stifle her laughter by raising the register card to her lips. The woman approached. "One moment, please. Sergeant Dilettante, will you please approach? We have a letter here for you from Interpol and the FBI with the Canadian Mounted Police." The woman looked from Helga to Michel. Michel stopped by the desk. Helga handed him several envelopes. "Thank you, Fräulein." Helga looked at the woman, then to him. "Very nice of you, Michel, to see the Churchvilles off. Such a lovely British couple. I do so hope they enjoy their vacation in Belgium and in your France." "Yes, oui. And hopefully the weather will be not so dreary in Essex when they turn for home." He leaned on the desk to look at the woman as she registered. "I hope you are here to enjoy a vacation, Oya, and not expecting to have Kashkov released into SVR hands before his hearings. I, as commanding officer here, will not allow for this. He has broken several laws in our country. He will stand for the hearings, as he is charged with the crimes. A trial will happen, and he will be sentenced. Then, when we see what that should be, he will be either here to serve time, or he will be deported. And if he returns after deportation, he will not be returned again, but serve his time with us here in Germany." She tossed her head, then signed the register. Helga handed her the pass card to her room. "Thank you. I am just here to relax." "From your war, I suppose?" Michel glared. She glared at him and walked away. Helga leaned forward. "Good move, Michel. I have let Joseph know she is here. I did so when it was in your attempt to help her with the door. I will notify security of other establishments to be alert for another. Papa says she has never worked alone. She is a loose cannon. No one can control her, not even her lover at the top of the food chain in her homeland of Mother Russia." "Very nice on your part, Helga. Have your computer lose something, please?" He handed her back the empty envelopes she'd passed to him. "We are in the middle of a very nasty, bad electrical storm, one of our worst in the last few years. We are due for a blackout with this poor weather that affects our older electrical system, as we have fuels for power delivered from her country, and they have threatened to shut down that line if we get involved in helping Ukraine. Besides the fact, Michel, we had that lightning strike of the tree. The storm is growing closer. My mother's country, I hate to say, but is not the way it was when she was born there. It is a bad time to visit Germany. Oopsie-doopsie-doo." She stepped into the office just out of sight of her brother-in-law. "Merci," Michel called as he watched Ola enter the elevator. The power went out a few seconds after the doors closed for the elevator to begin to rise, with Olya Lenovich trapped inside. "Oh, dear!" Helga called out, running back to her computer. "These old computers, Michel. We may have lost something. I do not remember if I saved." She placed a hand to her cheek. "I am old woman. I have seen your moment." She smiled. "More like a blonde fox moment." Michel winked at her and turned. "Ah, here is your husband, Herr Joseph." The chief of security walked over. "Power outage. How very strange. And our generators have not automatically turned on. I wonder why that is. He swung the key ring to the control box that housed the generator's connection to the hotel starting system for the auxiliary power to start for them in an emergency like this. When Helga saw Olga arrived, she'd called maintenance. Her brother, Ulf, had pulled the plug and locked the control box to present the key to Joseph. No one would be getting their hands on that key until Joseph gave it back to his brother-in-law, and that would only happen when Helga gave the order. Caused by our dependency on Russia. The Russian tanker named Oya has arrived and is in our port of call. Helga shook her shoulders. They heard the yelling in Russian, then broken German from the elevator. Oh my, someone is stuck. Helga twirled a finger in one of her loose, graying blonde tresses. She leaned over the counter as they looked down the hall. Chapter 30. Arriving at the airport, the Billers checked their bags in and the dog stroller. Annie threw out the paper bag. They went to the cafe to pick up some breakfast and ate. Then they proceeded to the waiting area outside of their boarding gate for United Airlines. At 4 a.m, they entered the gate area to go through security without a single issue. Carry-ons were checked. The security officer even took the time to talk to Ivana about the book she brought to read. He made friends with Noel Comp through the kennel door and told Dennis what a fine duxie he is. Annie's final act before boarding was to change Tatiana and ask where she could dispose of the diaper. Sir, this would not be good to travel with us. The man had laughed. Very true, Fräulein. Yes, this is because it was a cotton and it would not be good to take on a 9-hour plane trip. Several of those in security joined in the laughter. The guard held out the trash can with a smile. I will handle this little left behind for you and the little Fräulein. Danke, she smiled. They boarded the plane, and the steward helped Dima to his seat. Then the steward stowed the chair in the station for it. Tatiana's car seat was strapped in as she slept through most of the time. Dima placed Nolkov and his taxi beneath his seat. Annie seated Dennis and Ivana behind them and took her own seat. 20 minutes later, they were taxiing down the runway. They lifted off, and were leaving Berlin, Germany. Chapter 31. It was an hour after their flight left German airspace that the power returned to the hotel. This, however, was as the storm raged on outside. The lightning streaked the sky. A second tree had been hit by a strike. Helga, with Dirks and Adelheim, stood at the register desk. You two, you will be staying here, she ordered her niece and nephew. Jawohl, Dirks agreed. We could have very well lost the Zev with that tree had Herr and Fräulein Stulven not been walking the prince. Michelle looked at Dirks. It is good they were here from Texas on their vacation. Also, as I have worked with him in international police business, I am glad him being assigned to this situation with the two young ladies' bodies being found in that town over in New Mexico. The question is, how did the two who were supposed to be going to work in Sweden lose their lives and be found in the desert that is around West El Paso City, New Mexico, USA? Adelheim wiped her cheek. I am very glad that they found Amala and Vivarian to return them home to their parents. I will say I am grateful to the U.S. Federal Marshal, King Stulving, took the time on his and his wife's vacation to speak to both their family. Emily and Vivian were my friends. They stood watching as lightning flashed and the wind seemed to whip up to cause the trees to sway and bend. Most guests were unbeknownst to the issue as they slept through it or pleasantly accepted the hotel's apology. That was except for Olya Lezovich. It was she who now, out of the elevator, thanks to the call to maintenance, found her card did not work because of the power outage. And it caused the computer to lose all known information about her. In doing so, this led to her room being rebooked, and the hotel had no vacancy now. She would need to find a different hotel for her relaxing stay. Prior to her release from the elevator, Helga had made several calls, to which, when they rescued the woman, it was found, due to the time and the season, there were very few, if any, vacant rooms to be had, which would make for more difficulty, as all were booked for the sightseeing of the beautiful fall-colored countryside and the villages all over the country of Germany. Olya had stormed out of the hotel to have Michelle flag her a taxi. He locked eyes with Kurt Schultz, a friend and head of taxi drivers affiliated that worked for the hotel. Michelle's phone rang. He removed it from his pocket and looked at the number. "Kirk," he smiled. "Jawohl," he answered. When the man spoke, Michelle's smile widened even more. "Danke, Kirk. When you return, you come in and Adelheim will have a platter for you. And do not forget to pick up the envelope that Helga has here in your name." He ended the call. With a smile, he turned to those gathered. Kirk drove her for over 150 kilometers, hotel to motel, to Juggerbergens. There is no room at this time of the year, so she is back at the airport and seated in the lounge. Dreidel will be in contact should she make any moves or be met by anyone, and we will act accordingly. Michelle smiled. Helga laid her head back and laughed. That is one woman to be very careful of. She is a crazy. She will not be happy about being turned away and having her rear end to sit in a lounge. Your grandfather went against her when she was much younger. She has several screws loose in her noodle. She tapped the side of her head. It is why she is still SVR, because she slept her way into it. Michelle nodded. There were other issues with her as well. She is cruel and vicious. Your grandfather. He thinks because of him. This is why your father and mother happened. Zibo. He has connections to her, he told the twins as they stood there. The twins, Dirks and Adelheid, looked at one another. Chapter 32. Olya Levovich sat with her suitcase stuffed under a hard plastic seat on the steel-supported bench. Her carry-on bag had spilled out multiple items, and she had lost several things where the seam had split completely. As she went through the bag, she froze. A tear in the carry-on was where her documentation paperwork had been. Her passport, Russian ID, including her SVR identification. Her driver's license was gone as well. She dug in her bag. Where the hell are they? Oya looked about to see if these things were anywhere around her. They were not. Where had she been since she arrived at the airport? She was looking at the restroom area. Duh, I was there. She stood to grab her carry-on and headed to the bathroom. Oya shoved the door open to storm into a young teen with a backpack. As she pushed past her, the girl mumbled something in a language that was unknown to Oya. The girl went to the sink to wash her hands. When she dried them, she tossed the paper away and pulled the door open. Viti, King Steuben's daughter, King Steuben's daughter came over to him. Isabella, you okay? Yes, Viti. The woman you have been watching. She is frantically searching for something. They watched as Oya came out of the restroom and headed down the next one to enter. King looked at his wife, Elsa. What do you think? She is a bitch, my cowboy. I know her from Liechtenstein when I worked against KGB. She has lost something. You watch for her. You come this way. If she comes. He pushed up his Stetson hat as Elsa walked away. Oya came out of the fourth bathroom. She checked. As she stood there, she took out her phone to dial the hotel where she'd been locked in the elevator for over an hour and then told they didn't have vacancy. This is Oya Lezovich. I may have lost something as I came in through the door of your establishment or in the elevator where I was stuck. She snarled at Helga as the woman answered the phone. Ah, I am sorry, Fräulein. Nothing has been found or turned in. Did you have someone check? I am sure they would have turned something in if it were found. Michelle, has there been any lost items turned in today to security or to you? She asked. There were a series of words. There has been nothing turned in. Wait, one of our drivers are here. Kirk! There were more words. This was followed by a silent single word. Nein. I am sorry, Fräulein. Nothing was left in the taxi you were in. Oya ended the call. She set down her bag and started to pull things out. There is my valise. She turned the bag upside down. The leather wallet she was looking for was also gone. She shoved everything back into it. As she rose, she realized she wandered far away from where she had left her suitcase. Looking around, she saw at a short distance the exit that would lead to Terminal 2. Her eyes went wide. Oya slung the bag over her shoulder and ran for the opposite area back through Terminal 1 to where she left her suitcase. She ran all the way back to where she passed the lounge that was set behind the bench seats where she left her suitcase. Oya bit her lip as she looked up and down the area. The suitcase was gone. That meant her weapons that had been stowed in special slide box compartments were gone as well. She felt her pocket. Oya pulled from it several bills she'd exchanged at the money machine she used on her arrival. She flopped into a chair. What she held in her hand was all the funds she had, 310 euros. She looked up and down at the people that were passing her by and hurrying through the terminal. My charge cards, my money. Her eyes glazed as she saw the tall man with the cowboy hat, with the long red ponytail and the thick beard, that walked along with the short blonde woman and the teenage girl she'd crashed into in the first restroom. He held the hands of two younger girls. They looked to be the ages of about 11 and 7. All three of the girls had the cowboy's deep red hair. Oya threw up her hands. She needed to eat, and she needed to think. Standing, she started for the area in the terminal that held stores. She would need at least a change of clothing, and she needed to place a call to SVR headquarters before anyone boarded a plane. Olya was thinking of how to explain the loss of not only her documents that she would need to get back home to Russia or travel where she was needed to be sent, not to mention the fact that she'd had her weapons disappear. She paused as she passed the store that sold luggage. Olya looked twice at the bag that now sat to the side of the window. "What the?" She bolted into the store. "May I help you?" the clerk asked. "Where did you get that at?" She pointed to the suitcase that sat there. "The old Samsonite. It was in stock for several years. I have not yet cleaned it. It is not ready for sale as of yet." Olya looked at the case. It looked like hers. And yet, yes, it was dust-covered. She turned and walked out of the store. And there we will end for today. I hope you enjoyed this reading, and I thank you for your time. When next up, I'm wondering what's Olya's up to, and what will happen when the Billick family land in New York. We will continue this next time. If you like this, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe, and we will see you later. Thank you.